Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for being here and for your service. General Milley, back in February, and first of all, I'm embarrassed, and I want to apologize that we're sitting here having to have this type of conversation. We're sitting here at a time when the U.S. Army is the smallest it's been since World War II, and the disinvestment, particularly in the last 8 years, threatens the security of our country. And General Mattis said it best that the national debt's the greatest threat to our national security, and here we see why. I want to talk about readiness first. I have one question quickly after that. General Allen, just February, before a subcommittee on readiness, told us that 1/3 of our BCTs, 1/4 of our combat aviation brigades, and half of our division headquarters, only half, were deemed ready at that point. He also went on to say that only three of our, I think it's 58 BCTs in total, including Guard and Reserves, could be called upon to fight tonight. How does this budget proposal allow you to address that? And by the end of 2018, if you were to get the amounts in this request, how many of our BCTs would be ready to fight, and how would you assess the readiness that we just described here?
Our readiness objective for the regular Army is 66% of the formations are at the highest level of combat readiness, and our objective for the reserve component, both National Guard and U.S. Army Reserve, is in the 60% of their enabling capabilities. Right now, that comment about 1/3, that's still relatively true. I'd rather give you a detailed, it has changed since General Allen has testified, and it's gotten a little bit better, but as I briefed earlier, it's a slow progress, not the level that I would like to see.
Sir,
but with this budget, with the completion of 17 budget, we still have part of that year to go, and the enactment of the 18 budget, I think we will see significant improvement, because readiness is cumulative, and I think based on our current projections, assuming we hold constant things like op-tempo, and we get steady, predictable funding, then I think you'll see significant improvement in readiness by the end of 2018 for sure. It won't necessarily be at the objective level, but it will be a significant improvement over what it is today.
How much would you need to get to objective level?
Steady, predictable funding for several years in a row, and a growth in the size of the force. We chose in this particular budget to flatline the end strength growth. If more money became available, I certainly would like to see that.
If you were to get a CR at any point in that 4 or 5 year period you're talking about that would tie your hands to divert money from one area to another to address this readiness, how would that impact your ability to do what you're talking about doing?
CRs hurt. I'll let Secretary Spear, he's a finance guy, he knows more about how they hurt than I do, but I can tell you they hurt.
Yeah, you know, one thing's about the CR, especially the longer term they go, but any CR, they have a cumulative effect, and that's part of what we're coming out of from 13, 14, 15 on. Not only in terms of the ability for a commander to know and sustain predictability for training and what they're going to do, they are by nature conservative. So when they see the funding may run out, they react differently. They can be risk averse to that. But also you start making bad purchasing decisions, and those types of things go on. The cost of doing it.
Make shorter term decisions is what you're saying.
Correct.
Less optimal decisions that you would make if you had a steady runway of dependable
No, they're more
funding.
expensive.
More expensive too.
Right.
I mean, they hold things to the very end, and you have a whole bunch of purchases at the very end of the year that you don't get the best bargain for.
It's a crazy way to do it. This CR thing is just one man's opinion, I suppose, but it's a crazy way to do it.
Sir, I come from a different world too. I come from the business world. I've never seen this done anywhere else in the world. It's absolutely absurd that we're going to do that and tie your hands about allowing you to move money from one department to another to even adapt to reduce levels of spending. And our procurement program, that was the other thing you mentioned just now. One of the competitive issues that I believe, and you just said it, is that will make winners and losers in the future is how quickly we can adapt technology to the battlefield. It sounds to me like with what we've been doing compared to what China's doing, particularly with the rise of their investment, they're spending about $826 billion a year in comparable terms on their military today. That compares to our $600 billion, just to put that in perspective. In addition, they can bring things to market so much quicker. Would you elaborate on that just a little bit and how China is outpacing us in terms of bringing new technologies to the battlefield?
Your assessment is accurate. They have made significant advances. You know, we're in the 38th year, I guess, since Deng Xiaoping and the 79 reforms. So they have made a massive economic improvement in their society for 37 consecutive years. It's the largest economic shift in global power in 5 centuries. And when that happens, inevitably throughout history, significant military capability follows. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a significant development of Chinese military capability, and it's relatively rapid. They are not at 100% of our levels yet in some areas, but in other areas they've developed capabilities that are quite challenging. The specific capabilities, I'd prefer not to talk about them in open session, but it's a significant capability that they're developing.
Thank you both.